In this video, I'll give you the top 4 under-the-radar tight ends who could be big fantasy producers in 2024 fantasy leagues. I'm Jim Coventry of RotoWire. The first under-the-radar tight end who could be a big fantasy producer is Luke Musgrave of the Green Bay Packers. Now, Musgrave played well when he started his rookie season. In his first 9 games, Musgrave had at least 49 yards in 4 of those 9 games. And Musgrave was above average after the catch, 59th percentile. Average depth of target was solid, 58th percentile. They would sometimes use Musgrave as an isolated receiver while they put their stack of wide receivers on the other end, and Musgrave won in those scenarios as well. That said, Musgrave suffered an injury in week 12 and missed 6 games. And we saw him play at the very end. We saw him play week 18, I believe, and in the playoffs, but it was very few snaps, average of 14 snaps a game. Clearly, they were rushing him back from injury. Musgrave was playing 45 to 60 snaps commonly before the injury. Tucker Kraft played well while Musgrave was out. However, Kraft was drafted to be the blocker. Luke Musgrave was drafted to be the receiver. There's no reason to change their roles, and I expect Musgrave to move back in that primary receiving tight end role. Now, yes, there's a great group of wide receivers there, and Jordan Love did throw the ball more than typical Green Bay quarterbacks do under Matt LaFleur. But that said, Luke Musgrave is going outside the top 15 tight ends, and in that offense, if they continue to take off and Musgrave continues to be a big factor, a top 10 finish at the tight end position is possible. The next under-the-radar tight end who could be a big fantasy producer is Noah Fant of the Seattle Seahawks. So Noah Fant played in Denver before he moved to Seattle. And in the last couple seasons with Denver, we saw Fant getting around 90 targets and in those seasons averaging around 670 yards. So it was a very solid point of production for Fant. It's not tight end one stuff, like overall tight end, but it's certainly a player who could compete and be used in weekly lineups. But then once Fant moved to Seattle, 3-way committee. They had Will Dissly, they had Colby Parkinson, and Fant was part of it. And the timeshare was terrible. Fant saw 43 targets last year, not even an option because of the other tight ends they had. Fant is still very, very athletic. Even in limited work last year, 65th percentile yards after the catch. Now, Ryan Grubb comes in to coach the offense. We're expecting more 3-receiver sets. Fant is more of a receiving tight end, but I do think if we get the field spread out as we might expect with the 3 receivers they have, there should be room in the seam for a player like Fant to do extremely well. Now, he may not get those 90 targets he saw back in his Denver days, but it's going to be well more than the 43 he saw last year. So Fant is being drafted super, super late in drafts, and if you need a second tight end in leagues, Fant could finish as a top 20 option. If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. Just go to rotowire.com/Jim to see all of our content. The third under-the-radar tight end who could be a big fantasy producer is Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, the last time Gesicki was part of a component of a good passing attack, it was 2021, so a couple of years ago. In that season, we saw Gesicki get 112 targets, 780 yards came out of that. Productive player. And when Gesicki came in the league, it's been a while, but super athletic player, right? Well, the problem was he goes to New England. And those New England offenses the last 2 years were brutal. Coaching, quarterback play, nothing was going well. So, yeah, Gesicki averaged 31 catches, 300 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He did very, very little. So, but what can you say? You can't blame it on Gesicki. Now, we don't know how much athleticism he's lost as he ages. He's going into his 28-year-old season. But that's still young enough. And the fact is now, in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's the quarterback. We know Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are on the outside, but they're going to draw a lot of attention. And Burrow is more than happy to look and check into the middle of the field. And if Gesicki is weaponized as an athletic tight end, and look, we saw Tanner Hudson putting up decent fantasy numbers last year. Now, I know some of that was Jake Browning at quarterback, but still, this offense will use the tight end. So Gesicki in a receiving role, and remember that Bengals defense was not good last year. If they continue to play poorly, Gesicki could see reasonable target volume. And again, as a second tight end on the roster, he's worth a dart throw. The last under the radar tight end who could be a big fantasy producer is Jelani Woods of the Indianapolis Colts. Look, we're going to go on a lot of speculation here. We really haven't seen much of him. Reasonable production in 2022 as a rookie, but then Jelani Woods missed the entire 2023 season with a hamstring injury. So we really don't know what we have. And we also know it's a deep tight end room. Kylan Granson's up there with Woods, but they have a lot of Will Mallory's there. They have a number of people in that tight end room, and they run a heavy amount of 3 receiver sets, meaning they don't often have 2 tight ends on the field. However, Jelani Woods is 6'7", 253, runs very well, huge target, very athletic. If Shane Steichen, who runs this offense as the head coach, if he is looking to ramp up that middle of the field, remember the league plays about 73% zone defense now. Jelani Woods, if he has a good camp, could move into a prominent role. You're only taking a super late flyer on Woods as your second tight end. And if he doesn't start out the season well, you can move past him. But if he starts out playing well, he could have a big season.